Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us on today's Insights to Industry, Connecting Business with Education. My name is Louise Green and I'm a Business Partnership Manager here at Western College. So change, we're all subjected to change whether we like it or not. The world and the industry is constantly changing around us, whether it's changes in rules, legislation, technology, an organisation's vision, environmental factors, the list is endless. Without change, we stand still, we lose our competitive edge. Our offer is no longer fit for purpose, and the future success of an organisation can be severely compromised. Although change is inevitable, how we approach change is critical to the success of that change. So today we're joined by Martin Preston, who will be talking about how leaders can inspire change through innovation to deliver business growth and success. Martin is a sport and business consultant, coach and advisor who specialises in the acceleration of change for business growth and developing high-performing business teams and cultures that sustain success. Before I hand the floor to Martin, please do feel to comment in the chat and ask questions throughout the session, although there will be an opportunity at the end for Q&A. So Martin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks, Louise. Thanks for the introduction and also for the invite to be here today. Hopefully it's going to be useful for those attending.
Yes, I know I'm certainly looking forward to the content today.
And it's great to hear apprenticeships are being used for reskilling, because that's a theme I'm going to touch on briefly today.
Brilliant.
Great.
Over to you.
Thank you. I'll just share my screen and then get going. Okay, so hopefully you can see that, everybody. So change, innovation and growth. So as Louise mentioned, it's been an incredibly difficult time, and we can't ignore change. In fact, we need to and maximise it. So just going to run through a few things for the next 20-30 minutes. And the focus really, yes, is on change, is on growth and innovation, but is actually about inspiring your people. And when we talk about businesses, we're actually talking about groups of people, including you, if you're the leader. So what I'm going to run through today is just spend a little bit of time on the state of play. So what are we trying to deal with at the moment? Challenges and opportunities. And then look at some priorities. So I do mention about new operating models. So I'm going to share something that I hope is helpful in terms of that. And then just spend a little bit of time just looking at something which I think can help you get going and move forward. And when I talk about new operating models, I just want to mention right now that actually shifting legacy operating models is pretty tricky. So I think all the way through this, there's something about mindset. So, okay, so I'm gonna move on. So VUCA, many of you will be familiar with this. I actually love this little picture. I actually quite like VUCA. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And it was a phrase that was developed in the late 80s around leadership. And then it was popularized by the American military coming out of the Cold War. So they were basically saying that the rules have changed, the way things approach to changed, and actually there's a lot of VUCA in terms of what we're trying to deal with. So, I mean, how do you deal with VUCA? Well, just to the right-hand side of the little person there under the umbrella, you've got the opposite really, which is the way of dealing with VUCA: vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. And I'm going to come back to these in terms of new operating models and inspiring your people. And that person under the umbrella is in this picture is called a VUCA facilitator. Well, again, I'm going to come back to this. So I think the facilitator is actually the leader, and I'm going to touch on the challenges that leaders are facing right now. But COVID has accelerated change. So the world was speeding up, becoming more ambiguous and complex and uncertain before COVID, and really it's accelerated it. And it's just something that we can't ignore. So one of the things I'm going to touch on is, as a leader or your people within your business, how do you respond to this? How do you respond to change, uncertainty, complexity, but also opportunities to be innovative? And some people find that a lot easier than others. So as I said, I'm going to come back to that. So what's changed, but also what's changed for good. So there are certain things that we just cannot ignore now. They're going to become the norm, even though they'll continue to evolve. So it's being called the fourth industrial revolution, but technology, digital, AI is becoming something that we're all familiar with as consumers, but businesses are needing to harness if they want to drive innovation, drive quick decision making based on data, and give consumers what they're asking for. So we just can't ignore technology, and technology has gone through an evolution that we know, but actually it's going to boom even more over the next 10 years or so. We probably don't realise the potential of that yet. So it's certainly something we're going to need to embrace. And we know during COVID that actually we've all had to embrace it, whether we liked it or not. And what that's driven and accelerated again is consumer expectations. So our customers are expecting personalised service. They're expecting a quicker service, and they're expecting high quality service as well, and responsiveness. So consumer demands and consumer trends are changing. And again, we need to, if we're not on the ball with that, and we're not anticipating that, then we're going to find it really difficult to attract consumers, but also keep them. And then it's just not consumers, so people within our businesses as well. Things have changed. So we know all about hybrid home working. Hybrid working is now the hot topic, blending what we've become used to with spending time in the office. But we also know that mental well-being and helping our staff flourish, again, has become more prominent during this period. So there are more businesses now that are looking at how they can help their people beyond work. So making sure that when they come to work, they can be their very best. So we're having to think about some new challenges in terms of our workforce and our people. Learning. So, 300 and 100 apprenticeships, just touched on upskilling, and reskilling is something that's going to become more and more prominent. And actually, some agile businesses during COVID reskilled and upskilled huge numbers of their teams so they could deliver a new product or a new service. And they had to do that really quickly. And actually, some were planning to do that already, but actually increased the number of staff and personnel that they reskilled. And with change, with digital revolution and technological revolution, we're all going to need to make sure that we're upskilling ourselves all the time, and that's no different for businesses. And then the way we learn. So, traditionally it might have been courses or training, increasing online, but actually that's changing too. So hybrid learning, more personalised learning. And again, technology sits behind that. So with all this change and consumer demands and consumer expectations, our business purpose is becoming more and more important. Consumers want to know what businesses stand for. They also want them to stand up for causes, and we're seeing that in the news all the time. Businesses and organisations are being challenged to share their view on societal issues. And for young people, this is also really important. They want to go and work for a business that's having a visible impact, positive impact on society. So reframing and making sure that we're reconnecting with our business purpose is becoming more and more paramount. And then disruption. So, disruption has accelerated. There were some people that predicted a pandemic. Not many people took it seriously, but, actually an expectation of future pandemics is probably more imaginable now. But also with the drive of technology and AI and data and quicker decision making and quicker changes in consumer expectations, then there's going to be more disruption. So that all presents quite a lot of challenges that we're all trying to deal with, but we can deal with them, as the VUCA facilitator showed. But it takes a a change in mindset, a change in approach and operating models. So I just want to sort of share a few statistics which make really interesting reading about the sort of dilemma that we've got, but also the opportunity that we've got. And we talk about businesses, but I'll always reverse us back to people. Businesses are a collection of people. They're led by people. They're delivered by people. So when we talk about a business, we really can't disconnect from we're talking about people. So this is some research delivered by Aon across some of the European nations, including the UK, just towards the end of last year. And this was around resilience. You know, we know businesses need to be resilient. We talk about resilience a lot, but actually there are some characteristics that contribute to us being resilient as individuals, but also as business teams, and then ultimately businesses. So at the start of the pandemic, only a third of UK employees felt like they were resilient and they could be resilient, only a third. 2/3 of UK employees had lower engagement. So the lower levels of resilience then materializes into lower levels of engagement. So think about your people and think about whether they could be more productive. What can we do to help them? And then this is quite worrying. So we want people to be committed to the cause, to our purpose and our business. We want them to contribute and give their energy. And we need that to be productive and deliver. But 52% didn't feel a sense of belonging. And then again, really worrying. You know, people want to feel they're valuable, feel they're worthwhile, but they want to feel like they're progressing and developing. And that goes for all of us. 56% of UK employees didn't feel like they could reach their full potential in with their current employer. So if you're needing to not only move through COVID and the pandemic and potential recession, but actually come out of that and flourish, these are pretty worrying statistics. But there's a flip side. And this comes from, I think it's Mitt Sloan. Actually, this one's from Harvard. So businesses that maximize employees' time, talent and energy. So time, talent and energy can be up to 50% more productive than the average business. This research was released just before Christmas. And at the beginning of the pandemic, that figure was 40%. So businesses that maximize and really focus on maximizing the time, the talent and the energy of their employees, that productivity gap had grown by 10% between March and then December last year. And then continuing with this theme and going back to the theme of this session around inspiring employees for growth and innovation, an inspired member of staff can be up to 55% more productive than just a satisfied member of staff. And again, if you think about the energy that people can give, and actually as a business, you potentially need, but you definitely want, then working out how to inspire your team is absolutely key. Not just that they're satisfied, but inspired. And then that's last statistic. Sorry. So this was McKinsey, the statistic. So in the 2008 recession, and then following that, research showed that businesses that innovated during the crisis would outperform their competitors by 10%. But actually, the years following that crisis, they would outperform them by 30%. So the message here is that, yes, it's difficult, really difficult time, but actually adapting and changing and becoming more agile, and I'll touch on this in a moment, is absolutely key, just not for recovery, but actually for the future. So new operating models, and again, here's some advice from McKinsey. And when I mentioned about mindset, this is really key. So, you know, traditionally we have quite sort of rigid structures within our businesses. We have hierarchy. We have people in jobs, and we tend to think that they need to stay in their job and sort of just focus all their talent and their energy on that job. Well, actually, what's needing to shift now is businesses becoming more agile. Talked about quicker decision making, but also empowering people. So here's a framework that actually you can use to begin to shift your operating model. So you can embed speed and embed agility. I'm just going to quickly run through this just because I want to touch on a couple of things. So rethink ways of working. So this is mindset, but it's also about the structure and the way you organize your people. Speed up and delegate decision making. So if you want quick decision making, you need to empower people throughout the organization to be able to do that, but also give them the ability to do that too. Step up excellence, execution excellence. So again, this is enabling people throughout your organization to deliver really high quality. And again, some of that is around structure, some of that's around support, but a lot of that's around making sure they've got the right knowledge and also the right frameworks to make decisions. Cultivate extraordinary partnerships. So this isn't just internally, but businesses are now having to think about the ecosystem and their suppliers and their whole network that they operate within. So a lot of that was disrupted hugely because of COVID, and the value of our ecosystems has become even more important if we want to be able to deliver and have resilience, but also innovate and grow. So actually investing in your network will bring real value. Reimagine your structure. So again, this takes a little bit of a new approach. I'm going to show you something a little later on. Organisation that I've been working with, they're based in Dorset and health sector, and they've actually done this, and I'm going to just highlight how they've done it, but it's bringing dividends already. So flatten your structure. So you want to enable those in positions and teams and departments to get on and make changes and deliver high quality. High levels of bureaucracy just slow the business down, slow down decision making, slow down your ability to react. And by the time you may have approved some innovation or a pilot, actually the moment may have passed, but your competitors possibly would have taken the opportunity. Unleash nimble, empowered teams. So, you know, we have departments, we have teams within businesses. Actually, we need to take a completely different approach. And what we need to do is look at our business priorities and business opportunities and identify who in the business, doesn't matter of level or position, but who in the business can contribute to moving that opportunity forward, driving innovation, and then moving that through from a minimal viable product right through to something that's being pushed out to consumers quickly. So looking at teams that come together for a short period and then move on to new projects that actually they could be in a completely different team. This is really quite key. And touched on hybrid working, touched on hybrid learning. This isn't going to go away. So actually really focusing on making hybrid working practices work. So for the business, but for the people. So what do people need? Probably going to need technology, but they're also going to need a lot of support. And you're going to need to work out how actually people can stay engaged, feel that they belong, but also you're empowering them to actually get on and deliver the best they can. And then finally, reshaping talent. So there's a great saying that brilliant leaders develop brilliant leaders. So really investing in helping your people develop leadership qualities, decision-making, problem solving. And these are all skills that the World Economic Forum are saying are going to be paramount, at least for the next 10 years. So even those skills, and jobs are changing. We need to be more adept in terms of technology. Things like problem solving and decision making aren't going to go away. In fact, complex, solving complex problems is going to be something that we're going to need to develop even more. Learn how to learn. So if you want to be an innovative business, you need to really embed a learning culture. In sport, we quite often used to talk about it's okay to make a mistake or a failure. You know, that's when you learn. I prefer to say it slightly differently. If you haven't tried something before, is it a failure or a mistake? I'd probably say not. So actually, let's just flip it around and embed a learning culture. And you can do this physically within your business and your approach. You can embed learning loops. And again, been helping some of my clients with that. And then rethink the role of CEOs and leaders. And I sort of touched on this at the very beginning in terms of being a VUCA facilitator. You know, actually change within business is not possible unless the leadership are well placed to not only lead that change, manage that change, but actually be comfortable with it and ideally actually be excited by it. And I'm going to touch on this in a moment, but not everybody is excited by change. So just continuing that thread on leaders. So, you know, quite often there's a sort of a bit of a myth about leaders being very strategic and inspirational. That's not true. Some incredibly inspirational leaders have not been strategic. So again, I'm going to come back to that. So far I've touched on resilience, absolutely key, not just in times of crisis, but the characteristics that give you resilience are the same characteristics that will help you be innovative and sustain success. Talked about change, so not only accepting that change is essential, but also, you know, having the ability to lead and manage change and actually accelerate that change, but also being comfortable with it or actually even being excited about it. And then through all of this, being able to inspire. So if you're a leader, you know, what is your natural way of inspiring people? You know, I studied strategic leadership many years ago and finished the studies. And then there was a best-selling book called Quiet Leadership released straight after. No one mentioned introverted leaders during those studies and quiet leadership. So how do you inspire? But we know that inspired staff and employees can be more productive and actually drive growth. In innovation, again, how do you start with creativity in your business? And then how do you turn that into innovation? And then how do you take a minimal viable product through to being released to consumers quickly, but also continuing to learn quickly? And then all of this, you know, can contribute to business growth. So even in times of crisis, as I've mentioned. So here's from the Centre for Creative Leadership. Here are 4 skills that leaders need. This was pre-COVID, but I think they're pretty relevant, even though some of the thinking maybe has got a spotlight on it now. And number 1 for me, I'll always come back to self-awareness and emotional intelligence for leaders, but also them helping to develop this in their people. Communication, you know, particularly in times of crisis or times of change, you know, how good and effective are we at communicating? Influencing, talked about change, being comfortable with that, not just internally with boards or directors, but also with the employees, but also with stakeholders and partners and suppliers. And then learning agility. So all the way through this, I've mentioned about being agile, quick to react, quick to learn, and that can drive innovation. Embedding learning loops into your business, embedding a learning culture into your business. These are all things that will drive innovation, drive growth, but also help sustain that growth. And then, okay, so there's a lot there that I've covered really quickly. So what I wanted to do is just share something which I think, and I'm pretty sure, and I've been using this with my clients, is something that's being used globally because it can accelerate change for business growth, and it can help overcome some of the challenges but also maximise some of the opportunities I've already touched on. So it's a tool, it's called the GC Index. I'm going to really quickly just go through it, but it helps identify where individuals and business teams like to naturally are energized in terms of making a contribution and making an impact. And this links to individuals being inspired. It links to your employees being inspired rather than being satisfied. It links to being able to maximize the time, talent and energy of your people, including you, if you're the leader. And then it also links with and supports driving innovation and agility. So here's the model, and it's based on two really quite simple concepts. So you can just see around the outside of the disc there, you can see some arrows. I'm just going to start with by the green. So every product, every service and every program that we create and deliver starts with an idea. And when we go into businesses and we say we're going to come up with some ideas, some people will be energized by that and some people will be horrified by it because it's not the way their brain works. So knowing who your ideas people are is essential. And then if you move on round to blues, so every idea, we need to create a roadmap. We need to know that that creative idea is going to bring some value. So we need a roadmap, we need rationale to pursue it. So your ideas people are your game changers, your roadmap people and making sense of it are your strategists. We know you need to get on and deliver it. And these are your implementers, and they're not thinking about the future, they're not thinking about ideas, they want to get stuff done and delivered. So give them the plan, give them a product, service, and they'll get on and do it. But we all know to be credible, to grow, we need to be regarded as brilliant at what we do. And this is where your polishers come into play. They're constantly driving improvement, continuous improvement, and they're pretty obsessive about things being as good as they can be. And you need people that then can harness, are excited by harnessing all of those that are in your business, and they're the playmakers. So you could have these in your business, but if they don't know what each other brings, that can generate conflict. Every time there's conflict, it's actually costing you money. It's not only powering you moving forward, it's slowing you down. It affects staff morale, tension, stress, etc. So the GC Index is a model that's gaining a huge amount of traction. Large businesses with tens of thousands of employees, right down to solo entrepreneurs, startups, and SMEs as well, and the like. It's pretty portable. And the way it works is that every individual, it takes about 5 minutes to do the survey. And that's not a fib, it's the reality. It only takes 5 minutes to take the survey. And everybody gets a score out of 10 for each of the 5 areas. And that's actually my report there in the middle. So I'm strategic, which is backed up by being creative and also wanting to get movement and traction based on reality, which is my implementer score. My polisher score and my playmaker scores are lower. Doesn't mean I can't do that or don't do that. It just means that a choice, I'm most excited by strategy, game changing and implementation. So you can use this with individuals. I'm using this with leaders and business owners to, in terms of executive coaching for them, helping them lead their business through change. But you can also use this with every individual member of staff. I'll talk about that again in a moment, but you can build this into their learning plans to maximize their strengths and their energy, but also to address any areas they need to boost. And then what you can do is pull this into a business and a team aggregate score. And this is an organization I'm working with, including the staff team, the chief exec and the board of directors. You can see they're very heavy on implementation. They've got some strategists and some polishers in the team. They've got one playmaker and they've got no natural game changers. So we're having some interesting discussions with them about how they address the game changing areas, but also maximize the strategists and the polishers. And I'll just explain in a really simple way how we're doing that and how I think this can help you with the challenges that, but also the opportunities that we know exist at the moment. So just coming to a close now. I'm just going to sort of round this off. So as a business, you can take your individual, your team scores. And as I mentioned, there are some incredibly large businesses using this from all different sectors in about 30 nations around the globe right now. And the reason why it's gaining so much traction is because it's giving businesses and leaders really clear data, which they can align quite quickly and simply to their business priorities. And I know that Belbin and Myers-Briggs and Facet 5, there's a whole host of other tools, and I've used them. I've been accredited in some of them before. But actually, if you want data that you can align to your business priorities and accelerate change for growth and innovation, inspire your people all at the same time, then I'm recommending the GC Index. And then literally what you do is you look at the people within your business, and then you look at your priorities, and then you identify who can contribute to addressing that priority, when they can contribute and how they would contribute. And this is where we're moving away from rigid structures. We're moving away to sort of short-term teams, flatter teams, teams that are tasked with overcoming some challenges and coming up with new solutions. When they've done that, they move on to, or individuals move on to the next priority. And again, you know, this is quite a simple process. There are obviously lots of other elements to embedding and changing a new operating model into your business. I mentioned legacy models are hard to shift. Organizational cultures are hard to shift. And mindsets are hard to shift. But you can actually use this tool to drive all of those things. And as mentioned, you know, we know that leaders have got real challenges, but I do believe, and I'm seeing this in practice and from others that are taking these approaches that I've shared today, that you can embed resilience, you can positively manage and effectively manage change and quickly. You can inspire your people at the same time, including yourself. So the business leaders I'm working with, I would say are feeling inspired and energized and actually quite often liberated. And then actually, you know, at the core of this is driving innovation and all of that to drive growth. So that's it from me. That's enough, I think. So thanks ever so much for listening. The session was around developing new operating models, inspiring innovation and growth through inspiring your people. So hopefully I've sort of given you some useful information that will help you with that. If you'd like any more information or sources of the research, for example, that I've shared, then please don't hesitate to reach out. There's my contact details there. And then I think now we're just going to move into a little while for any questions.
Thanks so much, Martin. Actually, I have a question. So looking at that model on a couple of slides ago, obviously there were no game changers identified in that organisation. So what kind of, how, because surely you need to increase that to at least a number of 1 or 2. So what would you do to almost generate that game changer in that organisation?
Yeah, really good question. And they're actually trying to embed systems leadership within their business, and the reason they're doing that is because they need to influence wider network and other sectors to be able to innovate and grow and deliver greater impact. And when they saw that, they panicked, and they actually all thought the chief executive was the game changer, but he wasn't. It's just that he'd taken on that role. And when they saw it, they panicked. So the first question is, to deliver innovation and growth within their business, their sector, what game-changing capabilities do they need? So that's the first question. And then once you know that, there are different solutions. So is it bringing somebody onto the board? Is it training and development? Is it recruiting new staff that are game changers? Or actually, can you lean on or get the support from a stakeholder or partner or a colleague? So once you've answered the question about what you need, you can then come up with different solutions. They also did the opposite, where they looked at a lot of their team and said, blimey, we're all implementers, good or bad. So by knowing that, what we've been able to do is say, okay, well, let's make sure it's good. So let's adapt your model so that becomes a strength, not a weakness.
And what sort of time frame did it take for them to go from having nobody in that game-changing kind of position to having somebody in place? And I guess how often did they monitor that?
This is pretty sort of hot topic. I've been working with them over the last couple of months. They've shifted from that traditional model where everybody is sort of in their roles and you stay in those, to actually a model now where they're involving key people at key times using the GC index based on their business priorities. And then what they're doing is they're as a board, they're now looking at that game changer score, looking at their strategy. They're producing a new strategy at the moment. It's great timing. And what they're doing is really delving into, well, actually, what game-changing capability are we going to need to deliver that new strategy? They think the answer is with a couple of their stakeholders who are by nature innovative, creative, and innovative businesses. So they think that's the answer for them, but that's a live topic of conversation right now.
Yeah. I guess it must be difficult for organizations who, you know, I guess they do what they do, but then when it comes to then having to apply that innovation element, that I guess that can be quite a struggle for some organizations if they've not had to do it as predominantly in the past as what they have to now. Obviously now that everything is so different with, you know, post-COVID and Brexit. Absolutely. And all the rest of it.
Yeah, and on the GC index, I mentioned strategists and implementers, and they're quite pragmatic. So they rely on the tried and tested. So if you now need to go into the sort of unknown of innovation, that can be really uncomfortable. And in fact, you know, I'd ask the question, actually, if that's uncomfortable for you as a leader, what impact's that going to have on your business innovating and growing? But also you've been able to inspire your people that actually changing your operating model and being more innovative is a good thing if you generally uncomfortable with it. If you're a game changer and a polisher, you'll actually be excited by the opportunity that now change, even though it might be forced, can bring.
Yeah.
And even some of the people that are involved in the Game Changer Index, some of the founders, some panicked when COVID hit, and others actually would just said, oh my God, there's so many opportunities here. So if you're a leader, you know, I just posed the question, what's your approach to change and innovation, even if it's forced upon you? You're excited or actually you're resistant? Because that has an impact on your business, not only now, not only coming out of COVID, but also I mentioned the research in terms of future years, in terms of higher levels of productivity.
It's all really interesting stuff. So anybody else on the call, have they got any questions for Martin at all? We've got him for another sort of 5 minutes or so. So if anybody's got any questions, please do ask.
I'll just give a really quick case study, just while people might be thinking if they want to ask anything. I might have just completely dumbfounded everybody. So I've been working with a digital marketing business, pretty successful business here in the Southwest. The founder had been the MD for 14 years. I took him through his profile. He was trying to work out how the business was going to evolve. He didn't really have a roadmap to do that. And I asked him what he thought his highest score was on the index, and he got it completely wrong.
That's interesting.
Thought it was Playmaker. When we looked at his scores, his highest scores, he was 7 in Game Changer, 8 in Strategy, and 9 in Polisher. And what that enabled him to do was to create a roadmap for himself, but also then for his business. He's now moved to be chairman. They brought somebody in who's an MD, who's a Playmaker. And now we're now moving forward with the leadership team. They've got a new strategy. So sometimes we even pigeonhole ourselves just because we're used to playing a role. People actually say you're good at it. But really that's not. When he realized that his highest score was Polisher, he said, oh my God, this makes so much sense. I said, if you could focus on that, how would that feel? And he said, amazing. He said, this is so exciting.
Yeah, because I guess some people might kind of take that as a bit of a sort of like, oh wow, I'm not as effective in my role as what I thought. You know, for some people that might be quite a bitter pill to sort of swallow, to sort of say, well, okay, I'm going to stand to the side and let someone else that's got those qualities come and stand in and drive forward. So that must have been quite an experience for them.
Depends how you frame it. He actually said, "Oh God, I wish I'd known this before."
Wow.
Operations manager in year 3 or 4, and then he could really focus on what he's really inspired by. But the business is good anyway. The business is great, you know, it's successful, but it's really about, well, how does he take it forward? So he's now map to do that.
Awesome. So we've got a question from Mike. So what sorts of questions are asked on the index to establish what area you end up in?
Yeah, really good question. I won't go through them verbatim. When you answer the questions, you answer them based on a quick response, so your instinct, and it would be very difficult for you. And if you wanted to try the index, I would also encourage you not to try and you know, sort of put any bias on the answers. So people are normally amazed that their reports are so accurate, even though it's only taken them a few minutes to answer the survey. If anybody's interested in taking it, then please just feel free to reach out. I've got a policy of doing one with each business, you know, no charge. So that's the survey plus the feedback session, and then the report, you know, at no charge for any business. So that's one. Tend to start with the leader, you know, because then the leader can identify if they think it will bring value. So I know I haven't answered that question specifically, but hopefully I've given you a feel for, you know, a little bit of the process.
That's lovely, thank you. I don't think we've got any other questions. So, oh, hang on, I think we have one more. Oh, yes, we do. We have one from Amber. So Amber Clark said, hi, Martin, nice to see you again. What would be your best advice to employers who struggle to inspire their employees?
Hi, Amber. Great to catch up with you. Thanks for your question. So, yeah, if you're struggling to inspire your employees, I've obviously sort of touched on the sort of a few ways, but I mean, every leader or business owner has got real strengths. And what I've observed is that sometimes that can be, you know, driving the business, it can be strategy, it can be business planning, it could be stakeholder engagement, it can be all sorts of things, but sometimes it's not actually understanding what and how you can inspire people. To find that out, you really need to get to know them. So you need to get to know your people, you need to understand your people, and you need to sort of begin to meet and meet their sort of personal human needs. People need to feel valued, they need to feel supported. Trust within a business is really important. Identity, you know, people want to be proud of their business, identify with their business, they want to feel supported, and the way that people need to be supported now has changed. Touched on hybrid working, you know, I know businesses that actually are bringing in sort of financial solutions, so they're hoping their employees are less stressed about their personal finances. So, you know, health, mental health, we know, physical activity, there are all sorts of things you can do. There's a hell of a lot of support in this sort of field, but all of these things and the things I've touched on all contribute to inspiring your people. It starts with the leadership, knowing your strengths, knowing what you're not so strong at, and being authentic, and then inspiring people through your authenticity, but being clear about what they need, what you need to provide them to really power them to help you drive your business.
That's great. Thank you so much, Martin. Brilliant. So I can't see any other questions coming through. So yes, thank you ever so much for joining us today. It's been really useful. Yeah, a topic I find really interesting myself. So, but you know that already from our discussions. But thank you so much. So,
Thanks,
no, you're welcome. So Josh, is it possible you could share the next slide, please?
And I'll stop sharing.
Oh, lovely, thanks. Okay, so there we go. So just a reminder then, obviously everybody saw the video at the beginning of the session promoting the 300 and 100. So if you want to hire an apprentice, please do get in touch with us. There are plenty of incentives available for employers, not only just upskilling, you know, your current staff and providing a wider skill set within your teams, but also there's financial incentives as well through the government of up to £4,000 per apprentice. If you'd like to get involved with our campaign, then please don't hesitate to get in touch. Coming up in our next Insights to Industry, we have a lady called Kenda McDonald who's going to be joining us. Who's going to be talking about the psychology of buying and marketing. Kenda is the founder of Automation Ninjas, and she'll be exploring the psychology and the neuroscience that's given us the insight into how our brains work when customers are deciding whether they're going to buy from us or not. So that event is on the 14th of June at 1 o'clock till 2 o'clock, and the link will be going into the chat very shortly. So thank you ever so much everybody for joining us today, and again special thanks to Martin Preston for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next session in June. Thanks everyone.
Thanks Louise. Bye everybody.
Bye.